Hello, I'm George Maylim, editor of Vanilla Plus. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, the third in a series hosted by Vanilla Plus and Nexus Telecom, exploring the changing landscape of revenue and service monitoring. Previously, we have covered the challenges CSPs face in gaining business control through real-time intelligence. To do that, the current siloed approach must be broken down, and traditional spheres of influence within the operator back office made to interoperate more effectively. Each function can no longer be run in isolation as a separate fiefdom under the control of an individual. Instead, CSPs and their departments must embrace the need to converge in the back office. In the first webinar, we explored how performance monitoring and revenue monitoring are now two sides of the same coin as the BSS and OSS worlds converge. After all, how can you gain insight into the performance of your business if you don't have insight into the revenue that it is generating? This is no longer the old network monitoring world in which red lights mean danger and a row of green lights means your business is performing optimally. That the network is up is of course still critical, but it isn't an indicator of a well-performing business. It's simply an indicator that your network is performing to such an extent that you can compete. It places you in the game, but it doesn't necessarily make you the victor. According to a recent Analysys Mason study, by 2016, only about half of consumers' usage of mobile handsets will be dedicated to voice or text-based communication. That's down from 2/3 in 2011. The study, which looks at consumer behaviors across the telecoms, media and technology sectors in Western markets, sends a warning to operators that have traditionally focused solely on network-centric strategies and not consumer engagement. According to the report, the average number of minutes that an adult spends using these services each day will increase by almost 40 minutes in Western countries between 2011 and 2016. This presents an opportunity for operators and media players to reduce churn or generate additional revenue by increasing engagement with their service, device, or brand. Taking that on board, it is now clear that each back-office function doesn't need a specific individual monitoring system. Even though CSP networks and architectures are fragmented and multi-generational, heterogeneous intelligence can be gathered and, most importantly, used to the benefit of your business. A single service assurance system can be used to uncover intelligence from multi-generational network infrastructures, and that exposure can now be done so the intelligence is actionable. Part of that has been enabled by the existence of a single service definition model for both quality of service and quality of experience when it comes to monitoring and billing. Of course, in technology of any type, definitions are always complex to arrive at and attract consensus from across the industry. In the second webinar in the series, we explored ICDR and its impact on service monitoring. ICDR addresses the challenges of managing services, analyzing and providing solutions to increasingly technology-aware and service quality demanding customers. The key element is to have in place an intelligent data monitoring system that provides real, online, end-to-end ICDRs. We explored why an ICDR provides more information with less infrastructure, how this CDR concept allows scaling of a centralized intelligent monitoring system for very large networks, allowing successful integration in the largest GSM UMTS network in Europe, and why these CDRs make customer care far easier and the system pays for itself. That's a key point as we move into today's webinar. These systems deliver granular, real-time, actionable intelligence and can contribute such value directly to the bottom line that deploying such systems isn't a CapEx or OpEx strain. It's an opportunity to generate either additional revenues or the revenues you already generate more efficiently. In many cases, both of those benefits are apparent. So, on to today's webinar. I'll shortly hand over to Ian Dawson, Senior Marketing Manager at Nexus Telecom, who will present on the topic Service Monitoring and Customer Experience, Evidence at Your Fingertips. Ian's presentation brings the previous webinar's content together to explore what this means for the customer experience. The customer environment in which operators compete is wildly more complex than ever before. The network is the base, but performance across a range of content delivery is what they are judged upon, along with the innovation in their offerings. That might mean smart bundles, it might mean content-related propositions or discounts. However, the customer experience stakes are far higher than in the past. CSPs are now part of a convoluted value chain in which device manufacturers, content providers, and OS providers are all involved. Yet it's the CSP that takes the blame for failed experiences. For instance, one phone maker's flavor of Android might mean one content provider's app doesn't work on the user's device. Who's to blame? The short answer is nobody, because the device manufacturer didn't foresee the application that the user wants to access coming to market. So therefore it didn't ensure the version of Android it supplied with the device would be compatible with the app. The CSP similarly has very little input, but it is the CSP who will have to deal with the customer. Has anyone tried to find Android customer services? A good example recently was the BlackBerry failure. I'm a BlackBerry user, and during the system failure, my operator, which is T-Mobile UK, texted me tersely to say, "Don't call us." I understand the reasons for this because I work in the telecoms industry, but to most it looks like a shoddy customer experience and an operator fail. So how can this be mitigated? Service monitoring doesn't provide all the answers, but if an operator can see an issue, it can proactively step in to keep the user informed, perhaps make an offer, and of course inform the third-party provider that their content server is down, for example. Such systems can spot trends and alert the customer that they need to upgrade their operating system in order for an application to work on their device. Over time, such data can be correlated, and CSPs can gain an insight into useful business metrics, such as propensity to churn, or if a customer looks like they need to upgrade their service package or device. New revenue can be unlocked, and churn can be averted. Increased network complexity adds to the enormity of the task of obtaining such useful business metrics. As the mobile market rolls out LTE, the signaling burden of switching from LTE to 3G and 2G, and perhaps handing off to Wi-Fi along the way, creates a phenomenally complex and multi-layered service monitoring experience. Keeping the stovepiped architecture puts the CSP even further out of step with what's going on in that type of network environment. For CSPs, the days of running their businesses along network-centric lines are over. The market is saturated, so there are few new growth opportunities to tap into. However, CSPs are yet to play their strongest card effectively. That is, they know a lot about their customers. That's a great benefit to operators in their own operations, but critically, it is of monetizable value to third parties. CSPs that can uncover and provide these data in actionable formats have the opportunity, ultimately, data protection considerations aside, to cash in on it. That will go some way to make sense of the hefty network investment required to support the video boom that is coming to swamp current networks and the continued device subsidy orientation of many developed markets. So, on that note, without further ado, I will hand over to Ian Dawson. Ian.
Yes, thank you, George. I'm from Nexus Telecom, and as George mentioned, we're in the third webinar. And Nexus Telecom is a producer of software, and our focus is on customer experience, service quality, protocol analysis, network monitoring, and service testing. In our first webinar, George mentioned that we were talking about fiefdoms, and these are the areas where a lot of data is accumulated, but it's not shared across the network. And by looking at these fiefdoms, Nexus has a software that integrates between the OSS and BSS platform and combines these very effectively into one location, enriching from one to the other. So we have a complete information-packed data source of the customer. Then we talked about the second webinar about the increasing complexity of technology. And we see here with LTE technology, there's 200 plus signaling messages, and how can you easily see the faults? So with our ICDR, we were talking about, we make the correlation from the call from A to B, and we're selecting the major events and correlating together with the summary. And in this way, we supply one record for the whole network that is easily detected and searched for customer information. And for the customer, we can actually talk intelligently, seeing what he's been doing, where he's been, and define which problem he has, and therefore the customer is much happier. So today we're talking about one of the systems that we can install and deploy in a network that looks at service management and customer experiences and gives us the opportunity to have this network evidence at our fingertips. So we'll look first at service management and some of the trends that are facing the operators today. We'll look at customer experience management, how it can be implemented in your network and what are the considerations. And then we'll look at the evidence that we have at our fingertips through one of these systems. So first of all, the service management area. Networks were built for voice calls. They're rapidly changing today, but before they were bombarded with voices, and now it's endless streams of data. And the social networking sites of music and videos is increasing dramatically. The upsurge is largely driven by smartphones and the awareness of people, because their dreams are coming true for many customers to be able to communicate, especially in underdeveloped countries. App providers and social networks receive a lot of revenue, but network operators only get the data pipe revenues. And for these revenues, we need to manage the network congestion to make sure that these services run trouble-free and the customers are happy. How can we do this? Service management is to monitor the network congestion. One of our systems deployed is a great investment to understand the data access networks and their service performance, and includes the relationship between the end user equipment, the network equipment, and the data itself to find out where and what's happening. Then we look at the service trends themselves. The service trends we have in the operators are flat rate pricing models. We have seen a huge growth because of this, but we are now decoupling from traffic increase and increase in revenues. So what we need to do now is look at the services and see if we can see a pattern in our customers, what they're using, and how can I really make the services better for the customers and delight them. How do we know? How can we find this out? Well, first of all, we need to discover these user patterns, and then once we know the user patterns or the usage patterns, we can offer better plans, service plans, and this is also good for marketing. Then hopefully we can also charge a little bit more for services because we can offer a better quality of service, a faster speed for our higher revenue customers. And thirdly, we can provide flexible data service plans according to the time of day, for instance. So where you have streaming content, which causes a high bandwidth usage during peak times, these services are not very revenue efficient. So therefore, we need to know and understand this and encourage a much more uniform network use. So push these services that are not high revenue out into other time slots. Then we have an idea where we can say we need to educate the customers. They need to have the experience, and they're not for a great amount of money, so that we can organize a small amount of internet browsing at off-peak times so that these people can educate themselves onto what's available. And this makes not only the operator happy because the opportunity is there to learn, but the customers are happy because they can actually see the benefit of what they're actually using. And then we can have a look at attractive data roaming packages during selected time slots. So if somebody's traveling overseas, for instance, he need not look during peak times for particular information he's looking for, but save it for either early morning or late in the evening in his home network or in his network he's visiting to make sure the costs are down. So therefore, an attractive package would increase this particular chance of doing this. So with a service management system, we can prioritize higher revenue services when introducing new data packages. And therefore, we can invest efficiently to improve service offerings and revenues without even changing the network. It's just a deployment of a measurement system. Then, once we know the system's employed, we can look at the data service consumption. How do I know which service consumed most bandwidth? And which are the most visited websites? So once the customers are happy and know exactly what they're doing with things, we want to know what they're doing. So with deep packet inspection technology now, we can actually look at the applications that they're being used on the network to find out exactly which type of services the customers are using and when. So we improve data service by optimizing URL sites because we can see the most active APN sites. We can make sure that these initial sites, the web page, start page is stored in our network elements so that when our customers access that particular web page, they get a very quick response. And they would see that the service is much improved on this particular network. So this is a very easy way to improve customer services and be able to charge a little bit more for this particular performance. So service monitoring helps us in policy management control of service usage and to ultimately improve service performance. So by investing efficiently again, we can improve service usage and also increase revenues. Then we look at the video streaming usage of customers. This shows significant growth and continues to show significant growth because of the YouTube and Google and a lot of the stores who are selling media, movies, and these sort of applications. But how can we actually look and improve this particular service? So we look at the growing number of operators implementing application-aware charging models. So if they're going to use a video model or a VoIP service on this system, we can say we can have a different revenue structure or a tariff structure for those services. So when we actually look at the CDR that we create for the user, we can then say, okay, what was he using, which application, and that can go to the billing system and he can get his correct billing. So the service plans we can adapt, moving away from unlimited towards application-aware models. Then the data service browsing at home or near the city limits would be cheaper than browsing in the city centre, where we're expecting a lot of business people to have service because they're our high revenue customers, and we want to keep that service clear for these high revenue customers. So the service plan would be moving towards a location-based model, and therefore the CDR that we produce from the user plane would actually have the location of where the service was used and be able to be billed correctly in this instance. So this is another way of measuring our services and creating a record that is useful for the billing area. Then fraud. I was astounded looking at fraud, but after talking to some of our customers, I understood why. So the studies in fraud in recent years show that fraud is costing network operators billions of dollars yearly on a global basis. But fraud security threats increase with the expansion of the next generation IP networks. Now, when we're looking at fraud, the fraud detection systems need to be fed data to be able to detect this fraud. And with a system that provides a call or a session record or a user plane record for every transaction on a network, we can actually feed that into the fraud detection systems and create a data feed that is different from the customer's feeds, which are much delayed from their switches and billing systems. So with service monitoring, we can provide fast, detailed transaction record for fraud detection systems because they're online in real time. And in this way, we help the operators recoup millions of potentially lost revenue by these online data sources. So by investing efficiently, we assist the fraud detection to recover these revenues much easier. So in summary, understanding data customers the profit opportunity is no longer driven by this new technology, but generally what the customer is using, his applications and his service. So the operator must understand the most popular usage and service performance from what the subscriber is doing and his perspective, what he actually sees. So we can see his throughput, he sees area of where he's using it through his handset. So we must analyze and understand the applications and services to offer better services. The subscriber expectation is increasingly set by the device he's using and not by the service provider's brand value. So we could provide a lot of good service. We could get the pipe, the data pipe congestion down. We could look at all the different service packages, but we look at the device, and the device could be causing the problem, and we must track the device usage and its effectiveness. Even when it is upgraded with software, we can see the effect of that software upgrade on the device. The current operator offerings may not match the new services. So the subscriber would possibly be struggling, and we see a high level of his revenue is unjustified, or he's in the wrong time zone, so or the wrong time of day. So then we should say to him, okay, you are using a lot of data in this particular time, perhaps it's a better offering package for you. So here we can align the offering to his real usage and make it a better win-win situation. Then we look at the services, and they may differ drastically, but with the increase of, for instance, the social networks, we saw a huge increase in customers using these services. So this is a potentially high bandwidth, an extremely high bandwidth service, and the new customer segment, we must understand this very fast because of the huge effects on our networks must be solved before we have problems from our customers. So we can invest efficiently to understand the real customer behavior and then increase revenues. So now I'd like to introduce a couple of poll questions to understand a little bit of information from the audience listening today.
Thank you, Ian. So our first poll will be popping up on screen in just a minute. It's a two-part poll for the first poll, which I will ask you to answer the first question first. I'll read the question, then vote. I'll read the question again, and then we will go through the results. So the first question is, how do you rate the importance for service quality management? And the options are low, mid, high, or no vote. So that's how do you rate the importance for service quality management? Low, mid, high, or no vote? Okay, I think that's starting to settle down, so we can broadcast the results for Ian to comment on.
Yes, so we see here that a lot of people do think the service management monitoring is important, because it's not only for looking at, as we said, the revenue systems, but also we're looking at the services themselves, and we can look at alarming. Okay, thank you. Okay,
on to poll 1, part 2, which is just about to pop up on your screen, hopefully. And here we are. The question is, how do you rate the importance for customer experience management, low, mid, or high, or no vote? And the same question, how do you rate the importance for customer experience management? That's low, mid, high, or no vote. And I think the voting has settled down, so we're going to broadcast the results for Ian to comment on.
Yes, this is what we're seeing in operators today, that the customer experience management is very important, because if we can avoid bad service, our customers will stay with us, and the faster we know that, the better. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Back to your presentation.
We've got another poll question.
Oh, it's poll 2 following, I mean.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, the poll 2 question is, which system would you deploy first? And the first option is network monitoring. The second option is service quality management, monitoring, and the third option is customer experience management. So that's which system would you deploy first? Network monitoring, SQM, or CEM? And I think, no, there's still some votes coming in. I think they've stabilized now, so we'll broadcast the results for Ian to comment on.
So here we see that a network monitoring system is important, and we need to establish a network monitoring system first, and get the data to help the customers, and then deploy the systems that combine and enrich this data later. Okay, thank you. And we've got to the third poll question.
Okay, so the question is, what is your preference for accessing customer experience data? The first option is analyzing weekly reports. The second option is real-time, so reports with 15-minute intervals. The third option is online for instant customer transaction reports. And the fourth option is monthly reports with 5-minute granularity. So I'll run you through that again. What is your preference for accessing customer experience data? Analyzing weekly reports, real-time, so reports with 15-minute intervals, online for instant customer transaction reports, monthly reports with 5 minutes granularity, or no vote. And I think all the votes are in, so we can broadcast the results for Ian to comment on.
Yep. Yes, as I expected, the real-time is much more preferred, and the online instant customer transaction reports is second. So this is what I assumed would be the case, and so we'll proceed now with the customer experience management.
Okay, thanks again.
Thank you very much. Okay, so in customer experience management, I wanted to discuss today what some of the important aspects of customer experience management. So when we're looking at network operators today, the network operators today, they still have a focus on their customers, but the focus is shifting from attracting other people's customers to shifting to their own customers. This is because in a 100% saturated telecom market, you can only win customers by taking off somebody else, and this would increase your marketing costs. So the focus, when it's moving back to your own customers, we then need to offer a better service quality, and maybe they're prepared to actually increase some of the money they spend on services and increase their budgets, and therefore you would increase your average revenue per customer. So with customer management, you can concentrate on customer loyalty, you can reduce customer churn, and increase your revenues. The second point today is many customers envy telecoms because they already hold a lot of data about their own customers. Customer management then needs a new emphasis in telecoms, where a lot of other companies would love to have the opportunity telecoms have about their own customers. So as one of my colleagues, or a lot of my colleagues, we travel to many countries, and from the transaction records, our operator would know that the data service used at home is quite high, and when we travel abroad, the fact that it reduces would be possibly a concern to them and would ask why. But no one from our operator has contacted us, nor have there ever been a direct mail campaign about the availability of data roaming service packages, similar to competitor operators. So this is one way or one area where operators today need to look into their particular customer records and be able to offer better service plans, because the service plan would then offer a fixed monthly fee for this data roaming capability, but it wouldn't be used, so there's an opportunity there to get more revenue. So customer management can detect service opportunities to stretch subscriber budgets and also indicate warning signals about potential churn customers, because we can see the changes in the customer service usage and the potential revenues going down, and we can ask why. And so this is an easy detection point. So overall, we could reduce costs chasing churning customers and get them back before they think of leaving, and increase revenues. So we'll be able to detect very easily the potential churn customer. Then, looking at the data we have in operators today, that we need to implement a customer experience management system successfully. And to do that, the whole management must be fully committed to bring this culture change into operation. I say a culture change because when we deploy a customer experience manager system, the whole company must be involved. The customer must become king in this environment to be able to make it work. So we have to prioritize our resources, and we have to introduce systems to provide customer experience data and be able to enable fast resolutions to our customer complaints. This has to come from the whole company. So we need to invest efficiently to improve customer experience and would generate more revenues. So let's look at the customer experience management designs. So for our first design, we would say a customer selects an operator. He's probably seen a marketing campaign, and he say, okay, that looks good to me, I will join. Then he gets a degraded customer experience. So the customer would look at the service he's getting and say, okay, well, that's maybe 1 or 2 times. It's a little bit of trouble, and he would accept that. But then the little troubles get bigger and bigger, and then he finally complains. So he wants to ask about the service details, and he's told that there are no current network problems, but we will check on your service and get back to you. Then what happens is that many days delay in responding, the service is still bad, and the customer decides to leave anyway. So this is pretty much the standard customer experience design in many companies. So let's look at a service improvement design. So now we have the customer. Now with a service management system in place, we get a degraded service quality management, KPI. We get an alarm. Then we can attend to that alarm before it affects many more customers. We can readily solve the situation and get confirmation that we can see the improved service quality management. The KPI has come back again, and we get the online service monitoring with customizable thresholds section, and no customer details are ready when the customer does complain. So in a service management, we can actually improve by seeing the service degrading, doing something about it because it's online, and get confirmation back that the KPIs are right and proceed. So an improvement would be to have a service management in place. But there's another one where we have customer data to a refinement of this design. So we get a customer who joins and he gets a degraded service, but then he has an issue to complain. So he rings and he complains. Now the customer issue can be seen while he's online. So we can actually call up his service and we look at the online ICDRs that we have in our system, and we can talk to the customer and we can define the issue. We can probably see some of the issues because we have in these information the causes of why it's happened. But if not, we can actually tell the customer we'll get back to him and get someone to drill down, look at the sessions, and give us information back quickly. So here we can actually talk to the customer very assuredly and technically and get access to his service right across the network. But there's still a final design, and this comes about because today we see this an additional here in the no improvement in the red circuit down the bottom, where now today we have the social networks, and people on social networks would share their experiences very easily and affect a lot more people than one would think. So an operator must be very careful to make sure that he has a very good customer service improvement algorithm. So here, the improvement would be, so once the customer complains, the customer describes the problem, we check the issue, we get improved service, but then we do a gap analysis where we look at the actions of why it happened, what we did to improve it, can we actually stop it in the future, and then we can actually inform the customer what happened, how we've actually solved the problem, and what in the future we can do for him, maybe actually give him some rebate. And this is a good feedback to the customer. He's educated, he's happy, and then he gets on his network of social networking and tells people about his experience. So this is where we can see the online customer experience monitoring gives immediate clarification, and we can actually look at bringing more friends of this particular customer into our network. So let's now look at the evidence that we have at our fingertips in this particular deployment of a system. So, like any good detective, evidence is needed to find the cause of the problem to effect its resolution. So, to encourage a customer focus, the network evidence needs to be online, easily accessible, and displayed fast when requested. And so, we need to introduce systems to provide customer experience data to enable fast resolutions to customer complaints. We don't need to be tearing our hair out because of delays from other inbuilt or old systems. We need to be kept updated with the latest technologies available in the telecom area. So we need to invest efficiently to speed up customer experience data and to prevent this bad experience from happening, because one bad experience can affect a customer dramatically. And consequently, we can increase revenues, not because he uses his service once more, but he can bring a lot more friends with him. Then we got to get the performance right. So the evidence, the data source must be online. Our CDRs must be fully correlated, so we have a network-wide information of the transaction analysis. The customer service tracking, our VIPs or our very important revenue customers and selected groups, we can keep them under close watch. Here, Nexus has an add-on customer service monitoring where we have sort of like a cloud computing application inside the operator network that uses our system, and each person can then log in and configure his important customers to him and monitor his service performance and make actions to make sure these services and his customers are dealt with more efficiently. So this is a new application from Nexus. We have a customer care support view. This is a simplified view where we have an ET data entry for service delivery reports. So we can see, we can see immediately how our services are delivered to the customer and if there's any major problems within the network. Then we have the data service consumption, and this is where we look at the mobile broadband. So here we can see who, what, when, how much, and his performance of his data service that he's consuming. And this is much more important now because this is a lot of area where, as I said, a lot of use is occurring in our developed society. Then we have a flexible view for data export to support. So the areas that we can support with our data export from this system, we can look at network reporting. So anybody who's looking at the planning of network elements and introducing new services and access networks can look at this particular report to see the build-up of services. Marketing can have look at these particular customer records to look at flexible tariff plans and see if there's any better opportunities. We have management planning, so the people who actually run the operator can look at the particular calls and services which are used, which are not used, and do some reorganizing and strategy planning. Service assurance is where the network operations centers can actually look at the calls themselves and drill down and do a deep cause analysis of fixing problems. And the revenue assurance. Here we can actually send our records to a revenue assurance system and compare them to the billing system to get an exact account of just what calls are being missed or what switches are being missed or if there's any problems within the network recording the revenue. Then we get the analysis. So the analysis must be near real time. So we have to have the complete transaction analysis, as we said before, to find the correct issue. The voice services per destination. So we see where our interconnects, where our calls are coming in and going out of the network, and we can have some KPIs attached to those. We also must make our roaming services because this is an important revenue source, so we can see inbound and outbound roamers, and we can get service KPIs to have alarms to alert us to problems. Then we have our circuit switched and packet switch network accesses, where we can see the performance of our customers connecting to our core networks, and we can have this alarmed as well to find out which particular access areas are not functioning. And then we see the data service consumption, so we can see the services, we can see the network elements, we can see the websites, we can see the handsets, and we can see the effect on the services all these things have. Then we have the data export for near real-time reporting, and this is much appreciated from a lot of different third-party support, and we have we're feeding into other operators' CEM and SQM systems as well as our own. So the focus. So a single evidence system must focus on a circuit switched or voice services when we're looking at VoIP and NGN services on today's networks, and we're looking at RTP monitoring to see the services for the RTP voice quality. The service circuit switch and packet switch networks in one, so the ease of connectivity, as I said before, and the data content services, the mobile broadband. Then the analysis we must get a customer view, a service view, a network view, and a roaming view. And this then provides us a good matrix to be able to see what's happening in which particular area of our network in one system. So we can design a comprehensive quality thresholds to detect bad experiences, and then the customers enjoy the services that are delivered and the revenue increases. So in summary, telecom operators hold a lot of data about their own customers, and Nexus can add value to this data in a new way. Customer experience can be given a new emphasis. The access online transaction records and service consumption details are easily, so as explained before. The systems with an online focus deliver information fast, with the right analysis, adding value to the data from your network. And here we can delight customers with opportunistic offers. We can make marketing to increase the revenue per unit and not chase someone else's customers. And we can prevent bad experiences and save potential lost revenues. And in this way, Nexus systems contribute to making happy customers and increasing your revenues. So in conclusion, Nexus Telecom helps many customers to create business cases for the development of unique support systems. With customer experience online, many business areas within an operator have an interest in accessing this data. And here, anybody who wants to deploy one of these systems can go and check these particular areas to see if they would like to contribute to such a system. So here we have the customer care support. They will love it because it's very fast and easy. In operations, we have a low-impact integrated system with captured data history. And here, the root cause analysis is much easier and the faster time to repair. The roaming services, where we have alarms for the different roaming visitors entering a network or our visitors who roam out of our network. The management planning. So here we have a network link statistics to show where to invest, where to avoid congestion, where do we need new services, where do we have overloads. The marketing, as I said before, they can immediately test their new plan or new ideas in a little dream because they have the access online and they can test it. They can look through and search through the data, different ideas, different logic patterns, and they can see this. Service assurance, we can detect issues before they're affecting more customers. And this is what we need to do first before customers complain. And lastly, revenue assurance. We have a unique data source for fast fraud detection and revenue billing comparison systems. And really, the imagination is yours. You can actually find many more applications. So by combining all these areas in your operators, you can actually get a very good business plan to deploy one of these systems. Okay, thank you very much for today.
Thank you, Ian. That was some very interesting insights that you shared. I'd like to take this opportunity to encourage all the participants to submit a question that I can put to Ian. We've already had a few in, so I'll start asking Ian some questions in a minute, but do feel free to use the question box while we have Ian in the webinar to answer your questions. The first question, Ian, that we've received so far is regarding the fact that you said that operators already hold a lot of customer data. Given that, why do they need the kind of data that Nexus can provide?
Because we can add value to that data. We not only have the transaction from the data, but we actually have it from the whole network, which from the access through the core and through to where it's delivered. And this having this data in one particular package avoids the necessity to do correlation outside the systems or in other systems, to having extra systems deployed just to do this correlation. So we actually capture this data and do all the work and have this data ready online in one particular piece of data. So this is why it's important to have our particular data.
So the point is that it's there and easy to act upon the data that's there because it's all in the single system rather than having to correlate from the all the systems in the OSS stack.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Next understand why you need to measure network consumption related to mobile handsets. Aren't all handset functions and their consumption very similar?
Well, no, not really. When you actually look at the consumption of services and look at a mobile devices view, you can see that some mobile devices generate a lot of switching traffic, but very little data traffic or data throughput traffic. You can go down and look at the particular models then and the particular manufacturers, and then you can see some service or software versions numbers. But for instance, we did one particular customer. We saw a manufacturer. He had a lot of these mobiles, and I think it was number 3 or number 4 in his list. And when we looked at the actual traffic it generated, the switching traffic was quite high because it was making a first off PDP context, and then it was dropping it, and then it was making another PDP context, and then dropping it. So that the traffic was very high. But what he was looking at and what he was doing through the whole network, it was very little traffic. So this can actually cause a problem if you have these sort of mobiles in your network. So it would be to, say, recommend these your customers not to sort of have this particular mobile or upgrade the mobile to a new release because it doesn't happen with a new software version or something like this. So not all handsets are exactly alike.
Okay. Next question we've received is, how does Nexus Deep Packet Inspection technology benefit mobile data service analysis?
Well, when we look at a deep packet, we're actually looking deeply into the packet. And when we see the HTTP services from a browser or any other applications, we can see what application the actual customer is using. And from this information, we can actually look at putting our policy management systems into place and ensuring that the systems or the usage that doesn't give us a lot of high revenue is pushed out to another time slot, and the revenue, the high revenue systems like emails, dropping down sort of data searches for businesses are allowed to proceed much easier, and things like YouTube views or peer-to-peer or things like that are set outside this particular peak time. So this is what Deep Packet Inspection can do. It can help your policy management area to set these limits.
Okay. So we just had another question in asking, I assume just in general, how the Nexus solution, the question is, how does it interact with TAMIP?
Okay, so we have a service management area, and we can have the customer management area. They can measure KPIs and KQIs. When we get alarms, we have a SNMP, called a TRAP or an SNMP interface, and we can export all the alarms into an external management system that can manage all the alarms. So these systems are a core deployment, but as we have many interfaces, we can export the data, we can export the alarms, and we can also have another interface that looks at configuring this particular system as the network grows. So it's a complete system with many interfaces, so we can actually interact with TMIP systems.
Okay, great. I think there's time for one more question, so if any of the participants want to send one in, please do that now. But in the meantime, Ian, we were discussing how this can effectively be a non-cost option for CSPs from the point of view that the value of the intelligence generated rapidly outweighs the cost of deployment. Is that the standard approach across the industry, or do you find that a unique benefit to the Nexus system?
Well, it was pointed out to Nexus once. We sort of we couldn't prove this, but we knew our system was very fast. We knew that we had very good tools to do a root cause analysis because of the ease of the data, and this is what the whole point of deploying this particular system. But one of our customers said to us, well, we can actually give you the business case figures. And so they sent us the business case, and it was quite dramatic of what we do. So because we actually can solve network problems or customer problems in a very quick time, we call it mean time to repair, we can reduce, so our detection time is faster, and then the root cause analysis access to the data is much faster. Now, once those two things happen, our mean time to repair is reduced. Now, to repair may take the same time, but the detection and finding the problem is much faster. And therefore, when you think about a major problem or even a minor problem that is costing you revenue, just that time involved in reducing from actually finding it and defining it would save you a lot of lost revenue. So you can actually put a quantifying point on that particular lost revenue. So if it's a very major outage, you can put quite a few hundred thousands of dollars saved just because you have such a system deployed. So it would pay for itself in 1 or 2 years.
Excellent. I just had the final question in, which is basically asking how CEM can help operators work out how to share revenue with a content provider if their network is congested, and perhaps to offer a boost of bandwidth for certain subscribers. So I guess the question really looks at the bridge between policy management and customer experience management, and I guess using the real-time business intelligence to enable that bridge. So is it possible to share revenue with content providers in the situation that the network is congested by offering a boost, and how would your system help the CSP identify that opportunity and act upon it?
We could see the content provider, we could actually measure of just how many customers access their service and what the service consumption is and the volume through it and when it is accessed. But I don't know about sharing. I suppose you'd have to talk to the operators because, as mentioned earlier, the revenue these days is coming from the content providers, or they're getting a lot of revenue from their customers, and the operators are left with just the pipe revenue to be able to provide a service. You know, a lot of the apps, the information they get from the internet, the advertising on certain sites is all gone to the content providers. So this, I don't know whether I could say that yes, the CEM could help share the revenue, but we could certainly see how much these content providers are being accessed and the volume throughput. So there could be discussions about sharing something. Yes.
Okay, many thanks. And that brings today's webinar to a close. I'd just like to extend our thanks to Ian Dawson of Nexus Telecom for sharing his insights with us, and of course thanks to all our participants. I hope you've enjoyed today's webinar and found it informative. Goodbye.